Hey guys, Mosa here, and today I'm bringing you my Week 15 NFL Power Rankings. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Now, let's kick it off. The Tennessee Titans dead last, 3-10. They just took an L from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they'll go up this Sunday against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the Tennessee Titans obviously have been eliminated. There is no chance for them to get into the playoffs, and to be honest, they're most likely going to get a top 5, maybe top 10 draft pick at the least. There's going to be somewhere around there, maybe the 5th overall pick or something like that. In the end, is Will Levis the quarterback of the future of the Tennessee Titans? Honestly, I think that's a no. I think that they could use Will Levis for right now, but in the future, the Titans are going to need to draft a new quarterback. Maybe not this draft, but maybe in a future draft. But for right now, I'm seeing the Tennessee Titans dead last in the power rankings. Up next, we got the Chicago Bears at 4-9, took an L from the 49ers, and will be taking on the Vikings on Monday Night Football. Now, when it comes to the Bears, obviously it's not been the best season ever. Most likely this week that they will, in fact, be also eliminated from playoff contention. I honestly do not see any way the Bears make it in. I think that they're gone for good when it comes down to it. I think that Caleb Williams is going to have a down year this year. Obviously, it's not been a good year for him. But next year, maybe he has that bump in his second year. So, in the end, it really all comes down to how the team can perform next year, because Matt Eberflus is gone. Shane Waldron's gone. They're going to need a new head coach, new coaching staff for Caleb Williams. And to be honest, this team might actually do a little bit better. But if they fail in the offseason, it's just going to be the same old Bears. Now, moving on to the Carolina Panthers at 3-10. Took an L from the Philadelphia Eagles and will take on the Cowboys on Sunday. Now, when it comes to the Carolina Panthers, I'm going to be honest, this team is done. This team, honestly, I don't know how they're not eliminated from playoff contention, but they're not. I guess that's how bad the division is. But for right now, I'm seeing them as eliminated. There's no way these guys are going to actually get a chance at winning the division, because that's the only way I see them actually making the playoffs. And yeah, they're just not going to win against the Cowboys most likely. They'll go down to 3-11 and will be eliminated from playoff contention. Now, Bryce Young has been showing some spots of glory, some good plays, some good performances. Now, that's what you need from your future quarterback. You need to make sure he does that on a daily basis, and hopefully you build a team around him so that he can do even more with more receivers, with more protection, and a better defense. Now on to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 3-10, just won a game against the Tennessee Titans, and will take on the New York Jets, who are also on a downturn. Now, when it comes to the Jacksonville Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence is going to be the quarterback. They're not going to draft the quarterback, even if they get the first overall pick. The Jacksonville Jaguars will most likely build a team around their franchise quarterback. I don't think they're going to get rid of Trevor Lawrence anytime soon. So you better prepare for the future, and I think that's what they'll do this offseason. But for right now, I'm honestly in favor of letting Mac Jones play the rest of the year, and then in the future, you have your future quarterback playing and taking you to the promised land. Now, moving on to New York Giants at 2-11. They just took an L from the New Orleans Saints and will take on the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday. Now, when it comes to the New York Giants, they got rid of Mac Jones. Obviously, he is not their future. Neither is Drew Lock or Tommy DeVito. I'm thinking that the Giants will indeed be selecting a quarterback, whether it be Shedeur Sanders or someone else. In the end, it all really comes down to how you perform with this new quarterback by protecting him, bringing in some new offensive linemen, You got a good receiver in Malik Nabers. You also got some good, relatively good backup receivers. You got a decent running back in the backfield. Your offensive line is really what needs to be helped on that offense while you also fix up your defense. You've got that, and the Giants will be back into the playoffs, just like when Eli Manning won those 2 Super Bowls with the New York Giants against Tom Brady. Now moving on to the Las Vegas Raiders at 2-11, just took an L from the Buccaneers and will take on the Atlanta Falcons on Monday Night Football. Now, the Las Vegas Raiders, this team, honestly, they're in a rebuild. There's no way that, obviously they've been eliminated, so there's absolutely no way they get into the playoffs. Just play football with the backups. Make sure that those that you decide, I don't want to play them because I don't want them getting hurt, let the others play some snaps. Like, honestly, what's the point? Now, realistically, they need to go into this offseason, sign some veteran players for either the offensive line and the defense while drafting well. Maybe even drafting your franchise quarterback if you get the first overall pick. In the end, it's really going to come down to how the Raiders perform this offseason and if the offseason will be good enough to make the Raiders a playoff team in 2025. Now, moving on to the New England Patriots at 3-10. They just came off a bye and will take on the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona on Sunday. Now, when it comes down to it, I think that the New England Patriots are definitely going to be a team to be reckoned with in 2025, depending on how well they develop the team around Drake May. Drake May has proven to be a competent quarterback. He can be the guy they need him to be. So, in my opinion, I think that they need to work on that offensive line, and work on the defense, work on giving him weapons to throw to. Running backs, it's kind of okay, but still could use some improvement. In the end, it really all comes down to, just like the other teams, how well they do in the offseason. Now, moving on to New York Jets at 3-10, took an L from the Miami Dolphins and will take on the Jacksonville Jaguars this Sunday. Now, when it comes to the New York Jets, honestly, Aaron Rodgers has ruined this team, and there's no going back. The Jets are obviously eliminated from playoff contention, but that's not the only thing. I think that they will definitely get rid of Aaron Rodgers next season, and maybe after next season, somewhere around there. In the end, it's all really come down to who are they going to be having as their new quarterback, maybe in an upcoming draft. Not this one, obviously, since he's not going to be in it. And I'm thinking, maybe, why don't you bring Arch Manning to New York in the future? But you got to build your team up for that. You got to build your team, make it ready for Arch Manning, and then draft him whenever he joins the NFL draft. In the end, it all really comes down to their offseason, just like the others. How good will they be? Now, moving on to the Cleveland Browns at 3-10, took an L from the Steelers and will take on the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday. Now, obviously, we know what's going to happen against Kansas City. But what's going to happen for the future of the Browns? And I think 100% Deshaun Watson will remain the quarterback even if he fails. He is going to be the reason why the Browns will fail. Not because not only of his quarterbacking, but honestly his attitude. I feel like this guy is just not fit for, and this is excluding all of the facts about his potential, the women's stuff. I'm not going to say it exactly, but you know what I'm talking about. Excluding all that, it's still, the performance is not there. He's not performing. Jameis Winston is performing better than him. That's bad for Deshaun Watson. He's supposed to be this guy, the former Texans quarterback, to lead the Browns to the future. And where is he leading them? All the way down to the garbage. and the Browns will continue like this until they can void his contract. Now on to the Indianapolis Colts, who are 6-7. They just came off a bye and will take on the Broncos on Sunday. Now the Indianapolis Colts, they are in the running for a wild card spot, and honestly, I see them potentially making it. But it's a very tough road ahead of them. They've honestly got to win most of their games, if not all of their games they got remaining, which is in total 4 games. So I'm thinking that they squeeze out a potential chance. I think that they'll be the 7th seed. If not, they'll just be out by just 1, and they'll be 8th instead of 7th. That's around the position I'm thinking for the Indianapolis Colts. But in the future, they're going to have to work on this offense and defense, specifically the defense more, because honestly, I think that is the reason why the Colts are not actually contending for the AFC South title because of that. And honestly, that's why Houston's going to take it without a single worry of the Indianapolis Colts. Now moving on to Dallas Cowboys, who are 5-8. They just took an L from the Cincinnati Bengals on Monday Night Football and will take on the Carolina Panthers this Sunday. Now, when it comes to the Cowboys, they should be eliminated by now, not because of their statistics or their rank. It is mostly due to the fact, look how they played against Cincinnati and look at the way they lost. This team should by now, even if they're not mathematically eliminated, they should be technically eliminated, because this team is not good and they will not be winning enough games to make it into the playoffs. 2 losses at the minimum from the Dallas Cowboys. That is what I'm expecting. And realistically, Dallas should have done better this offseason. They did not, and look what happened. They failed the 2024 season. Now moving on to the New Orleans Saints at 5-8. They just took a win from the New York Giants and will take on the Washington Commanders on Sunday. Now the Saints have improved. I think they're 3-1 with their interim head coach. So obviously Dennis Allen was not the main reason why the Saints were losing, but was a reason. I still think that Derek Carr might not actually be the quarterback of the future. Obviously, he is in the upper ranks when it comes to ages. So, realistically, I don't see them selecting a quarterback this year. But next year, the Saints will definitely look at a quarterback. And most likely, then is when the Saints will actually be better and good enough to not only make a playoff run, but potentially even a Super Bowl run with their new quarterback. Now moving on to the Atlanta Falcons at 6-7, just took an L from the Vikings and will take on the Raiders on Monday night. Now when it comes to the Falcons, obviously, they are just terrible. But most of their division is the same. I'm thinking it's going to be a 2-way race, kind of 3 if you add the Saints, between the Falcons and the Buccaneers. They're basically just 1 game apart from each other. This is going to be a tight race for the NFC South title, and to be honest, I think Tampa has the more favorable chance at actually winning the division, and they split their games, so they're not really like tiebreakers will come via their conference and division record most likely. It really all comes down to how well they will play in their next 4 games. Atlanta has to win all 4, while at the minimum, Tampa has to lose 2 in order for Atlanta to actually clinch the NFC South title. Now on to the Arizona Cardinals, who are 6-7, took an L from my Seattle Seahawks and will go at home against the New England Patriots on Sunday. Now when it comes down to it, I actually believe that the Arizona Cardinals will do a decent job. They'll go back up to 7-7. Most likely, they'll need to win all their games and hope Seattle loses. They cannot tie with Seattle. If they do, Seattle wins via tiebreaker as they won both the games against the Arizona Cardinals. So realistically, the only chances Arizona has on winning the division is if Seattle loses at the least 1 game, maybe 2, while Arizona wins out the rest of the season, which is going to be tough, and I don't think it will happen, but still, it's a possibility nonetheless. There's also Los Angeles to deal with. I think they might be third, maybe fourth in the division. So realistically, it's a lot tougher for the Arizona Cardinals than any other team in the NFC West. Now, moving on to the Cincinnati Bengals at 5-8, just took a win from the Cowboys on Monday night, and will take on the Titans on Sunday. Now, when it comes to the Bengals, honestly, they're not making the playoffs. I don't think they will. I don't think they will win their last 4 games of the season. Maybe they'll win 1 or 2, but they won't win them all. They'll end up with a losing record. And yeah, I'm not seeing the Bengals much of a playoff team this year. Maybe next year, depending on the situation with your receiving core, running backs, whatever, all that stuff. But I'm seeing more of this, of the Bengals being a recession for them. This is going to be a recession. And then next year, depending on how well they do in the offseason, they'll actually be a top contender for Super Bowl, maybe even AFC Championship or at least playoff appearance. But yeah, it's not been a good year for the Bengals, and it will continue to go on a downturn. Not the entire way through, but at least a few games. Now, moving on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 7-6, just took a win from the Las Vegas Raiders, and will take on the Chargers on Sunday. Now, when it comes to the Buccaneers, obviously, this team is going to have a tough time against the LA Chargers. It's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a rough 4 games. If they win them all, they win the division. Probably just 3. As long as they win 3 to 4 games, they're the NFC South champions. Now, will that happen? Maybe. But it really all comes down to how they can perform down the stretch. And I think they can actually win like most of their games, especially against some tough teams. Like maybe they sneak out a win against Chargers, maybe they don't. In the end, it all really comes down to how they will perform those games. Now, moving on to the Miami Dolphins at 6-7, they are going up against the Houston Texans on Sunday, and they just took a win from the New York Jets. Now, when it comes to the Dolphins, honestly, we all know that they're not going to win the division. That's already Buffalo's. So they're going to try and get into the playoffs via wild card. And the only way I see them doing that is if they win all 4 games, which is going to be difficult, especially against teams like the Texans. But still, it's not out of the realm of possibility that they could actually do it. I actually believe that there is a possibility where the Dolphins can win out. But it's a slim one. And even though it's a slim one, I honestly believe the Dolphins not only have a chance, but hey, maybe we can see them entering into the divisional round after a win in the wild card. Now moving on to the LA Chargers at 8-5, just took an L from the Chiefs and will take on the Buccaneers. Now, they are obviously in the running for a wild card spot. If they win about 3 games, maybe 4, all 4, it all really depends, but I think that they could actually make it in. And honestly, the Buccaneers, it's going to be a tough game, but still, that's a winnable game. And yeah, I think the Chargers could have the opportunity, although they do have to face off against Denver and all that. These guys have honestly been very good with Bo Nix. So I'm honestly in between a rock and a hard place about this. But in the end, I think the Chargers have one huge chance on doing it. But it is still a slim chance since, honestly, the Chargers are the kind of team that tends to actually blow their chances. Now, moving on to the Washington Commanders at 8-5, just came out of their bye and will take on the Saints on Sunday. Now, when it comes to the Commanders, they have been pretty good. Jaden Daniels is in the running for Rookie of the Year. Honestly, I'm seeing this team as a very good one, but like as long as no injuries come to Jaden Daniels and then his career gets ruined like RG3's did, as long as something like that doesn't happen, the Commanders have a big chance of making not only the wild card, but advancing as far, but not further than the NFC title game. Yes, I in fact believe that they could make the NFC title game, but making the Super Bowl is a whole other issue. So, yeah, this team is pretty good, and I think they can win all 4 remaining games, potentially. But in the end, their game against the Saints, that's a possible win, and most likely give them. And I think, no, actually, it does give them a winning record. So, yeah, I'm thinking that this team is going to be very good under Jaden Daniels for the near future. Now, on to the San Francisco 49ers, 6-7. They just took a win from the Chicago Bears and will take on the Rams on Thursday night. Now, the 49ers, just like the Cardinals, have a tough battle to get to that top of the NFC West. And honestly, Los Angeles, same thing, but honestly, the Rams are only 1 game behind the Seahawks compared to the 49ers, who are 2 games behind, and same goes for the Cardinals. So realistically, they're going to have to win all 4 games, hope that Los Angeles loses not only this game, but loses their next game. That way, that the LA Rams would fall out of the second place. San Francisco jumps up, but then they'll also need Seattle to lose about 3 games. So unless those things happen, San Francisco won't be the NFC West champions anymore. But you never know. Anything could happen in this league. Now on to the Los Angeles Rams at 7-6. Just took a win over the Buffalo Bills and will take on the 49ers on Thursday Night Football. Now when it comes to the Los Angeles Rams, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, this offense has been pretty good. But it's honestly the defense that worries me the most. Obviously, they allowed 42 points, but Los Angeles managed to score 44 in, well, The point is, I think that this defense will be the downfall of the LA Rams. Ever since Aaron Donald left, this team has had a vacuum. They have not had a good defense ever since, and will probably not have one. Obviously you have Jared Verse, rookie, already performing incredibly good, but that's just one guy. One guy isn't going to fix your defense, and honestly, we're going to be seeing a lot more coming from the LA Rams if they don't work on their defense in the offseason. Now, on to the Denver Broncos at 8-5, just came off a bye and will take on the Indianapolis Colts this Sunday. Now, when it comes to the Denver Broncos, Bo Nix has been pretty good. That offense has been pretty decent. Honestly, we might be seeing a Denver Broncos team make it back into the playoffs in a long time. I think the last time might have been when Peyton Manning was the quarterback of the Denver Broncos back in 2015. I think that's how far back as we can go where the Denver Broncos made the playoffs. I'm not that sure. Maybe they've made it after that once, maybe, but lost in the first round. But besides the point. The point being that Denver has a good team. 4 games remaining. Maybe 2 wins at the minimum. At the maximum, I'm guessing 3 wins for the Broncos. 3 wins would be pretty good. That is still an 11-win season. And honestly, potential playoff spot. At least in the wild card. Because honestly, at this point, Kansas City has that division all wrapped up. But in the end, Denver honestly could be a very good playoff team. In not only this year, but in the future as well with Bo Nix at quarterback. Now, kicking off the top 10, we've got the Seattle Seahawks at 8-5, took down the Cardinals, and now will take on the Green Bay Packers on Sunday night. Now, when it comes to the Seattle Seahawks, my Hawks have been pretty good in this stretch of the season. Obviously, we had a decent start to the season. Then we went to just basically ruin our season, and eventually we got right back into it. We beat the Cardinals twice in 3 weeks, and honestly, we have a potential opportunity. I think 3 wins, that's all that's needed. Maybe 3 to 2 wins, that's all that's needed for Seattle to clinch the NFC West. And honestly, that would be a very good thing to have, being a Seahawk fan. But in the end, I think that this team, whether it be in the run game or in the pass game, honestly, we're going to be successful As long as we have DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Noah Fant, Tyler Lockett, and obviously in the backfield, we just saw what Zach Charbonnet did, and we have a good running back as well, Kenneth Walker. As long as we got those guys, I have no issues with the Seattle Seahawks in the future. We just got to get better. At number 9, we got the Houston Texans, 8-5, just came off a bye, and will take on the Miami Dolphins this Sunday. Now, Houston has been pretty good, most likely the AFC South champions. There's no doubt there. But it's still up for grabs on what position in the playoffs they will be, whether it be 4th, 3rd, or 2nd. I think that number 1 is definitely out of range for the Houston Texans. But otherwise, pretty good team, playoff team. Now, can CJ Stroud do what he needs to do in the playoffs? That's a potential. Maybe he'll have a Russell Wilson second-year Super Bowl title type season, or he'll fizzle out, be eliminated in the first round. You never know. But in the end, it all really comes down to how they perform at this end of the stretch of the season, get that division title, and make it into the playoffs, but then having to fight against Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Buffalo in the playoffs. Now on to the Baltimore Ravens, 8th on the power rankings, 8-5, just came off a bye and will take on the New York Giants this Sunday. Now when it comes to the Baltimore Ravens, I'm going to be honest, their season is a little bit disappointing in my opinion. We've just been seeing some terrible play from the Baltimore Ravens at some times, but they are still in the running for that AFC North title, but I believe it's still more in the ranks of Pittsburgh getting it. They're still a playoff team, but probably eliminated in the first round. That's how bad I think they are. But they most likely won't lose to some bad team. They'll probably lose to a very good team, in my opinion. Maybe a Denver or an LA Chargers. You never know, one of those two. But yeah, this team is not going to be in the Super Bowl this year. Now at number 7, we got the Green Bay Packers, 9-4. Just took an L from the Detroit Lions, who are most likely right now the division champions, or at least sort of. They still got Minnesota to deal with. But they'll be facing the Seattle Seahawks on Sunday night. And honestly, Green Bay has done pretty well, even with an injury-prone quarterback in Jordan Love and some other players as well. I think that whether it be Jordan Love, Malik Willis, doesn't matter. They can make it. But they're not a Super Bowl winning team. Not this year at least. But maybe if you work on the offensive line, maybe on the defensive line, something in that scenario, maybe the linebacking core in the offseason, maybe you'll be a Super Bowl appearance. You'll make one in the next season or the year after that. Now moving on to the Minnesota Vikings, who are 11-2. They're 6th in my power ranking, and they just took a win from the Atlanta Falcons and will take on the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football. Now, the Vikings are just one game behind the Detroit Lions. Most likely, the Detroit Lions win the division. These guys enter the playoffs anyways, and Green Bay follows suit. In the end, it all really comes down to how the final 4 games will be for each team. I mean, Green Bay technically still has an opportunity, but that's a slim one. I'm not saying Green Bay's not going to do it, but even though it's a slim chance, they still got one. And Minnesota, most likely the other team to actually contend for that division title. Chicago, you're already out. You're not even going to make the playoffs, so we can just forget about Chicago for now. But in the end, this comes down to how the Vikings are either going to make it or screw up their 4 games to not only not win the division, but be maybe a 5th or 6th in the playoff ranking. You never know. But in the end, I'm thinking that the Minnesota Vikings could actually do something in the playoffs if they have the same type of season in the postseason that they had at the beginning of the year. Now, kicking off the top 5, we got the Buffalo Bills, the AFC East champions, 10-3. They just took an L from the LA Rams and will take on the Detroit Lions this Sunday. Now, Buffalo already in the playoffs. They're just seeing where they land in the first, second, third, or fourth place in the playoffs. Most likely third or second, somewhere around there. Kansas City most likely first. But in the end, it all really comes down to how they perform these last 4 weeks and how Kansas City performs these last 4 weeks. The only way I see this is if Kansas City loses the remaining 4 games of the season and Buffalo wins the remaining 4, making it that the Kansas City Chiefs are basically not the best record in the conference, and Buffalo would be. They could even win 3 games and Kansas City loses out. As long as something like that happens, Buffalo has a chance. But I highly doubt it would happen. Now, moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers at 10-4, they are the number 4 team. They're going up against the Eagles this Sunday and just took a win from the Cleveland Browns. Now, Pittsburgh, incredible with either Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, but I feel like the quarterback has no bearing on the wins or losses. I feel like it's more of that defense allowing the least amount of points. And honestly, Mike Tomlin's teams has always been good enough to make it. And yeah, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers this year will in fact make it as the AFC North champions. But when it comes to the playoffs, that's a whole different story. Now, moving on to the Philadelphia Eagles at number 3. They're 11-2. They're going to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers this Sunday, and they just took a win from the Carolina Panthers. Now, when it comes to the Eagles, they have been pretty good. They honestly have it mostly wrapped up already. They are in the playoffs. Realistically, they still have a chance to lose the division to Washington, but I still believe that the Eagles will in fact win their division, probably be the number 2 team or number 3 team in the conference. In the end, Philly is just going to be that kind of team where we make it, but then they'll just fizzle out and lose in the first or second round of the playoffs. Now at number 2, we got the Kansas City Chiefs, who have just won the AFC West, 12-1. They're going to take up the Browns this Sunday, and they just beat the LA Chargers on Sunday night. Now, when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs, honestly, it's been more of luck than really skill. Patrick Mahomes is one of the worst quarterbacks this season, and I don't see realistically this team doing much in the playoffs. Although we might see some dumb luck happen for the Chiefs. They make it back to the Super Bowl, for them having the opportunity to make the first Super Bowl three-peat in NFL history, but hopefully for many fans that doesn't happen. Now we move on to the number 1 team, the best team in the National Football League, who had just clinched the playoffs. We got the Detroit Lions, who are 12-1. They just took down the Packers, and they will take on the Buffalo Bills this Sunday. Now, this team has honestly been on a high ever since. They've just been, oh my god, this season, only losing 1 game. I don't remember. I think it was against Minnesota or something like that, where they lost the game. But still, this team has been insanely good throughout the year, and I expect them to be the number 1 team in the NFC. Even Philadelphia won't beat them. But that doesn't mean that they'll have playoff success. I think that the Detroit Lions, just like last year, will fail in the playoffs in honestly, a very good game. It's going to be a very good one. But still, I see it as Detroit losing in the NFC title game, just like last year. And if they go to the Super Bowl, that would be an amazing thing for the city of Detroit. Now, that was it for this video. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Tweet me any video ideas. Also, tell me down in the comments below, who do you think should be higher and who should be lower? Tell me down in the comments below. Now, like this video if you liked it, subscribe, and hit the notification if you want more videos. And I'll see you guys next time.